Okay, you're on YouTube, so you probably know who Joe Rogan is. Let me show you a quick clip and I want you to judge what you think.
How much is it, Jamie?
95 billion.
95 billion.
Wow.
Plenty of money.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Imagine what they could have done with the money that they've already pumped into Ukraine, just in the inner cities of this country.
Makes sense, right? That money could do a lot of good in the US, right? Well, not really. This is a breakdown of the US budget for 2024. Do you notice anything strange? The US is spending $3 trillion on welfare. That's about 31 times as much as helping Ukraine would cost. Okay, a few more numbers. US GDP is 27 trillion, so Ukraine aid would be about 0.3% of that. If the aid were a tax on Americans, it would be a 0.3% income tax increase. Okay, stop. I hear you yelling all sorts of arguments. So let's debunk each myth about Ukraine aid, one by one. Number one, helping Ukraine is expensive. Okay, I feel like we've already debunked this, but just consider how the US spends around 800 billion per year on defense, how small Ukraine aid is in comparison to that. So yeah, helping Ukraine is a damn bargain. Number two, Ukraine aid is not audited. Yes, it is. There is an inspector general who audits the aid to Ukraine, and you can read his 158-page report on this. Like, did you even bother Googling before you came up with this argument? Number three, helping Ukraine does not help the United States. I mean, okay, look. Russia has been the United States' primary geopolitical rival since the end of World War II, with China now creeping in for the throne. Russia was the country that helped Assad. Russia interfered in your elections, and look, even if you don't believe all that or don't care, Russian TV constantly shits on the United States, and Russian members of parliament sometimes talk about nuking the US. Nuking it, like, with nuclear weapons? Like, imagine how much you nerds would overreact if a US congressman wanted to nuke Russia. Well, a Russian equivalent of a congressman wants to nuke you, so maybe overreact to that instead? Number four, Europe isn't chipping in to help. Okay, first of all, Europe is obviously chipping in to help. EU countries have both through the EU and individually spent a good deal more than the United States on helping Ukraine. It's simply a myth that it's just the US doing the heavy lifting. This becomes even more apparent when you look at these numbers as a percentage of GDP and see that the United States is behind the top donors by an order of magnitude. Simply put, people from Estonia have given over 3% of their yearly income to help Ukraine, while people from the US have given just 0.3%. And that's over 2 years, not 1 year. So you've basically been taking about 0.15% of your yearly income each year. Number five, Ukraine will lose anyway. This is the worst one. First of all, I want you to think back to February of 2022. The entire world expected Kiev to collapse and be taken within a few days. And then Russia failed to take Kiev. And then people expected it to take a few months. And then Russia failed at that and left the area completely. Then people claimed that Ukraine would not be able to take back anything, and then they completely pushed the Russians out of Kharkiv. Then we heard claims that Ukraine would be unable to take back Kherson, and then Ukraine took back Kherson. The Russian military turned out to be no panacea. It's more of a paper tiger, and Ukraine managed to hold on. Right now, Russia is on the offensive, attempting to take more of Ukraine. What is your solution? Some of you may suggest that Ukraine should just stop and sign a ceasefire, giving away almost 20% of the country. What good would that do? Russia would just come knocking in a few years whenever Ukraine does something they don't like. Ukraine would not have independence. And just imagine what it's like to give away a fifth of your country. Imagine if this much of the US was controlled by Russia. Does it look good, does it? Right now, the West is watching a country dying for liberty and democracy, and its reaction is, meh, could you cut it out? Make no mistake, this will not be the end. In 2008, Russia invaded Georgia and the world pretended that it was a one-off. Then Russia annexed Crimea and the world pretended that it was a one-off. If Russia isn't stopped now, you're gonna see a lot more one-offs in the coming decade.